walk tomorrow. Get some exercise, get the sweep in, and get the damn chimney cleaned. If anyone calls, tell them I've gone abroad. In less remote parts of Scotland, people had their chimneys vacuum cleaned, but in Drim, villagers relied on the services of the itinerant sweep Peter Ray with his old-fashioned brushes. Chimney sweeps are still regarded as lucky at weddings, especially if they kiss the bride. Pete made extra money from being hired to kiss brides, even though people swore he had only 2 baths a year, one at Christmas and the other at Easter. Mostly, he was as black as the soot he took from the chimneys. He lived in a hut high up on the moors between Lochdubh and Drim. He drove an old-fashioned motorcycle with a sidecar to carry his brushes. Millie obtained his phone number by calling the local store. Just before he arrived, the captain said mysteriously that he planned to be out for some time and repeated that if anyone asked for him, she should say he had gone abroad. The sweep arrived just after he had left. Millie took one look at his soot-covered appearance, gave him a mug of tea, and then rushed to spread newspapers and old sheets over the drawing-room carpet. She then said she was going to walk down to the village to get some groceries. She asked Pete how much it would cost, and then gave him the money, saying if she was not back by the time he had finished, to leave by the kitchen door, lock the door behind him, and put the key through the letterbox. She had a spare key. Millie was determined to be out of the house for as long as possible, in case whoever it was her husband wanted to avoid should come calling. Millie knew herself to be incapable of lying without giving herself away. Also, she had had little chance of meeting any of the women from the village and was longing to talk to anyone who was not her husband. She spent very little in the local shop, knowing that her husband took a malicious delight in not giving the locals any custom. But she chatted to several of the women, and a Mrs. Mackay invited her back for tea. Happy for the first time in ages, Millie returned home after several hours. She was annoyed to find the kitchen door standing open, and then assumed that either the sweep had forgotten to lock it or her husband had come back. Millie picked up the sheets from the floor and put them in the laundry room. There were still crumpled newspapers in the hearth where she had left them to catch any fall of soot. She decided to have a glass of whiskey before she did any more cleaning. She took one of her husband's precious bottles of malt whiskey from the sideboard and poured herself a generous measure. Her husband would not approve, but he was so often drunk in the evenings that she was sure he would assume he had drunk the whiskey himself. She sat down in the drawing-room, sipping her drink and staring at the large stone fireplace. She had enjoyed her little bit of freedom. If only her husband would go away more often. If only, whispered a nasty little voice in her head, he were dead. Feeling guilty, Millie took another sip of her drink, listening all the while for her husband's return. The wind had got up and was blowing around the house. Plop, plop, plop. Millie stiffened. What was that noise? A leaky tap in the kitchen? No, the noise seemed to be coming from the fireplace. Darkness was falling. She got up and switched on all the lights. Plop. The noise was coming from the fireplace. She walked over to it and stared. Something dark was falling in drips onto the paper. The chimney was old. If you bent down and looked up it, you could see the sky. Perhaps it was rain. She caught a drop on the back of her hand and then held her hand under a lamp on a table by the fireside. Millie let out a whimper of fear. Blood. By the time Police Sergeant Hamish Macbeth arrived from Lochdubh, Millie had shut herself in the kitchen. "It's blood dripping down the chimney," she cried when she opened the door to the tall policeman. "Now then," said Hamish soothingly, "it's maybe a bird or animal stuck up there. But the sweep was here and cleaned the chimney." "When was that?" "This morning." "And where is your husband?" "He went out for a walk. He's not back yet." "In the drawing-room," you said. "Yes, let me show you." Millie led the way. The drawing-room was sparsely furnished with Swedish assemble-it-yourself furniture unsuited to what had once been an elegant room. Hamish took out a powerful torch, crouched down, and shone it up the chimney. The torchlight fell on a dangling pair of highly polished brogues. He sat back on his heels. "I'm afraid there's a body."